Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us on this latest update on the situation in Lebanon. At the time of recording, the impact of the war on civilians in Lebanon continues to grow dire. Fighting between the Israeli military and Hezbollah is increasing in its intensity. Israeli forces are currently conducting more airstrikes on a daily basis across a wider area of the country and inside of Beirut itself than they had done on a monthly basis over the past year. At the same time, the Israeli army continues to expand its territorial occupation in southern Lebanon. As always, the brunt of the war is felt most heavily by civilians. According to the Lebanese government, by the 8th of March, the number of displaced persons inside the country had exceeded 500,000 people. As recently as yesterday, 9th of March, the International Rescue Committee has estimated that the number has now surpassed 700,000. We'll link that report in the description of this episode, along with sources for all our numerical claims. But let's look at that a bit deeper. According to that same IRC report, of those 700,000 people, only 1 in 5 are in a formal designated shelter. Most of them are outside in their cars or simply in the street. Almost all of them are dependent on community-level response efforts, such as the one being led by our friends at Ahla Fawda. Of those 700,000 displaced people, over 200,000 are children. Between March the 2nd and March 9th, at least 83 children have been killed in Lebanon, according to UNICEF. That is more than 10 Lebanese children killed each day. It is estimated that nearly 300 children have been killed across the region since the US-Israeli war began with Iran on February 28th. Nearly all of those children were Iranian or Lebanese. It is not difficult to imagine what the international response would be if those same numbers of children were killed in a different country. In reality, the numbers of those killed and displaced is growing daily. According to another estimate from the UN Refugee Agency, over 33,000 Syrian refugees in Lebanon have crossed back into Syria as a result of this ongoing war, along with at least 3,000 Lebanese refugees. This estimate was from the 6th of March, so those numbers have almost certainly grown significantly since that time, a mere 4 days back from the time of recording. Bear in mind, Syria continues to face significant internal security issues and a decimated economy after years of war and international isolation. Consider for a moment the circumstances people are facing as they assess that they and their families will not be safer. It is important to have an understanding of the broader situation, but our motto here at the St. Martin's Cloak podcast is humans, not statistics. Our focus will remain on the people of Lebanon themselves. That is the real story behind these headlines, the human story. Our priority, as always, is to tell you that story and then provide ways that you can help. Imane Assaf and her brave team at Ahla Fawda are assisting people who have been displaced by multiple Israeli wars, bombardments and invasions over the course of their lives. Imane herself asks the same question repeatedly: why? We cannot, and we would not, add to her words. Instead, our job is to present them directly to you as she has written them, and then provide ways that you, an international listener outside of Lebanon, can help. The best way to help right now is to support grassroots humanitarian action directly through the link in the description of this episode. You can also help by sharing these stories in your own communities and social circles to let the world know what is happening inside of Lebanon. We encourage you to do so.
The following are written messages from Imane. Just as a reminder, when Imane references the Eco Hub, she was referring to the center of Ahla Fawda's humanitarian aid operations. This is the heart and soul of their wartime response. We have included links in this episode description and on our Instagram page that will connect you directly to the Eco Hub and to the team on the ground. We encourage you to follow them. We plan to bring you these perspectives from the Lebanese people doing the real work on the ground as often as possible. Our coverage and the availability of the team will likely evolve in response to real-time conditions. Please note, these are Imane's words, describing the wartime situation on the ground as she sees it. Our responsibility is to convey that to our listeners directly. Day 5. The echoes of another frightening, sleepless night still hung in the air this morning. Arriving at the Eco Hub, I was not surprised to see the queue already forming outside the gate. People stood silently waiting. They know the routine now. They know where to come when everything else disappears. While we were setting up, we allowed an elderly couple to come in and sit down. They nodded quietly and took their seats. The woman held her head in both hands, as if she were trying to carry the entire weight of the world in her palms. No words, no smile, only a dull, distant expression in her eyes. Just a small nod of thanks and silence, complete silence. The day quickly filled. People came pleading for any kind of shelter, asking for food, clothes, anything that could comfort their children. Family after family, story after story. One man said softly, "I went this morning to check on my house. It's now an open terrace, nothing left. But in the middle of the rubble, I found our IDs. That's all we have left. Ourselves and the IDs that prove who we are." The children were anxious, restless, arguing with each other. I asked the volunteers to play with them, give them crayons, draw with them, sing songs, put on some music. Soon the children were drawing their homes, hearts and names of their school friends. Rita, one of the Ahla Fawda team members, turned to me and said quietly, "This reminds me of the war in 2006. We had to flee our home. I kept asking my mother, are my friends still alive? Will I see them again?" A question none of us could answer. Will these children see their friends again? Later, a gentleman approached me. "Don't you remember me? I was here during the previous war." I looked again and suddenly recognized him. Of course, the school teacher who used to come for the books for his children. "I had to flee again," he said. "I had just finished repairing my home. We were finally settling back. And now this." Then he asked gently, "Can I bring my 13-year-old daughter? She wants to read stories to the children." Another woman approached quietly. "Can you give me one extra blanket to put on the floor as a mattress? The floor is too cold." Then a call came from one of the school shelters. "Please increase the food portions. We are now 670 people." The number had jumped from 450 to 670. "Where are they sleeping?" I asked. "Everywhere," he answered. 15 to 20 people in each room, in the hallways, in the playground. There is no space left to move. Another mother asked, "My son is under trauma. Can you help with medicine? A doctor?" All day long, this same echo filled the air. "Can you help? Can you help? Can you help?" Exhausting, painful, deja vu. And in my mind, the same question keeps repeating. Why? Why must the stories of war, fleeing homes, sleeping in cars and shelters, be the story our children grow up with, generation after generation? I remember as a child the Israeli invasions and wars. I remember the bombs with parachutes lighting the sky at night. I remember the moments of complete silence, wondering if the next strike was coming towards us. I am 60 today, and I am reliving the same stories again, now with a new generation, with my children. Is this our destiny, or is it imposed upon us by living beside a country that prides itself on genocide and mass destruction? Is it acceptable that destructive politics are treated as legal power, while victims are told they brought it upon themselves? Earlier today, I asked a gentleman, why react now? Why now, when they are already busy with the Iran war? He looked at me calmly and replied, "It is easy to sit and judge when you are far from the daily attacks. When and where they strike is their choice. We live every day under the threat of being killed. The world stays silent, No statements condemning the daily attacks, no outrage at the rising death toll since the ceasefire. We stayed silent. We restrained ourselves. We mourned innocent lives every day. We persevered. Then he said something that stayed with me. The question should not be why. The question should be, when will it end? I had no answer. And as much as I hate reliving the experience of war, my pain is nothing compared to those displaced again and again, rebuilding their lives again and again, living every day in fear for their homes, their families, and their country. And yet, despite the fear, the exhaustion, and the endless cycle of destruction, Lebanon still stands. They may destroy homes, roads, schools, and entire neighborhoods, but they cannot destroy the will of a people who refuse to disappear. We rebuild, we return, we stand again. Because this land is not only built of stone and concrete, it is built of memory, dignity, and an unbreakable love for life. It is built from generations who refused to surrender their identity, their culture, and their hope. Again and again, they tried to break us. Again and again, they discover that the spirit of this country cannot be bombed into silence. And when the dust settles, when the smoke clears, and when history writes its final lines, the truth will remain simple and undeniable. Lebanon, still standing. Day 6. The weight of stress has finally caught up with us. Today at the Eco Hub, tension was everywhere. Between displaced families and us, between team members, between volunteers. It felt as if the air itself was heavy. Even in normal days, it is difficult to please everyone. Imagine what it becomes during war. Everything is taken personally. Every word carries weight. For the displaced, every sentence must be said with extreme care, delicately, because one wrong word and it feels like a humiliation. One woman looked at us and said, "You should see the way we live, our houses. We are not here to beg. We only want the basics, a place to shower and something to feed our families. We left with nothing but the clothes we are wearing." And you understand their pain, but understanding it does not make the day easier. Everything becomes your responsibility, and everything is blamed on you. If supplies are short, if someone waited too long, if another family received something first, if a word was misunderstood, it all falls on you. It is a heavy weight to carry, and the reality is exhausting. Exhausting dealing with war, exhausting managing displacement, exhausting running a relief mission, exhausting trying to stay strong. 3 schools to cater for, a constant flow of 100 to 122 new displaced families every day, managing food supplies, hygiene kits, and a kitchen that must cook daily, answering endless calls, following up on pending work and responsibilities that war does not pause, everything piling up on top of everything. Total exhaustion, stress, fatigue, a creeping sense of depression. No glass of wine could ease the packed memories of the last few days. No prayer can really distract from the reality we are living. No words could comfort the inner anxiety. But then I remind myself, if I am exhausted, imagine how it must be for the displaced families. Families who have been on the move for days with no shelter, or shelter with the bare minimum comforts. Families stuck in rooms with 30 strangers. Families arriving at the Eco Hub asking for help when, in normal days, they are the same hospitable people who would invite you into their homes to share their food. When I think of the people on the other side of this tragedy, I realize I have no reason to moan or complain. Tonight, I am exhausted, drained in body and mind. But tomorrow, the gates of the Eco Hub will open again. And despite the chaos, the tension, and the weight of it all, we are still here, still helping, still standing. So that is the latest from Imane. There are so many reasons why it's important to relay these kinds of stories to people outside of Lebanon, especially, I'd argue, in my case, back home in the United States. So when you see a headline along the lines of 300,000 displaced in Lebanon, this is what that actually looks like. Once again, links to support these efforts are in the description. Please share this episode to help get the word out there, and follow Ahla Fawda on social media for the latest. This has been an episode of the St. Martin's Cloak Podcast. Today is March 10, 2026. Thank you for listening, and stay safe.